The Tuscan sun beat down on the sprawling vineyard, the air thick with the scent of ripe grapes and impending drama. Rows of perfectly manicured vines stretched towards the distant hills, a picturesque backdrop to what was supposed to be the happiest day of my sister Clara's life. Instead, it felt like the opening act of a Shakespearean tragedy, with me, Kylie Austin, playing the unwitting pawn. My mother, Eleanor, stood nervously near the ornate wedding arch, her usually composed face etched with worry lines deeper than the wrinkles in the vineyard's ancient soil. The source of her anxiety? My Aunt Millie, her eccentric and estranged sister, who was currently nowhere to be seen, despite being the unexpected catalyst for this entire debacle. It all started with a phone call, a chillingly calm ultimatum delivered by Clara, my older sister, a woman whose meticulous planning extended to every aspect of her life, including apparently the guest list for her own wedding. "Mom," Clara had said, her voice laced with a steeliness I'd never heard before, "if Aunt Millie is at my wedding, I'm calling the whole thing off. I'm not sharing my special day with that woman." The venom in her voice was shocking, a stark contrast to the sugary sweetness she usually reserved for public appearances. Mom, ever the peacemaker, had tried to reason with her, to explain Aunt Millie's eccentricities, her harmless, if slightly unconventional ways, but Clara remained adamant. It was Millie or the wedding, a choice that left Mom teetering on the precipice of a familial chasm. Mom, a woman who valued family above all else, found herself trapped in a cruel dilemma. Aunt Millie, though undeniably quirky, think flamboyant hats, a penchant for reciting poetry at inappropriate moments, and a wardrobe that seemed to defy all known laws of fashion, was still her sister. Their bond, though strained by years of distance and differing life choices, was undeniably real. But Clara, my fiercely independent and controlling sister, had always been the apple of Mom's eye, the child who effortlessly achieved everything she set her mind to. To lose Clara's happiness, to see her meticulously planned dream wedding crumble, was a prospect that filled Mom with a profound sense of guilt. The weight of this decision had visibly aged Mom in the past few weeks. The vibrant woman I knew, the one who always had a witty remark and a comforting hug readily available, was replaced by a shadow of her former self, her eyes haunted by the unspoken conflict tearing her family apart. I watched her from the periphery, a silent observer. In this unfolding drama, torn between my loyalty to both my mother and my sister, my own quiet existence, a life dedicated to my art and my small circle of friends, felt suddenly insignificant in the face of this monumental family feud. The vineyard, with its idyllic beauty, felt like a cruel mockery of the turmoil brewing within our family. The wedding was about to begin, and I knew, with a sinking feeling in my stomach, that the choice my mother had made would have far-reaching consequences for us all. The silence was broken only by the distant murmur of wedding guests and the insistent buzz of bees amongst the vines. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows of an olive tree. Aunt Millie. Before we continue, don't forget to like this audio. And subscribe to the channel by clicking the icon in the bottom right corner of your screen. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what are you doing while listening? I love knowing who I'm sharing this moment with. Now let's continue with the story. The sight of Aunt Millie, resplendent in a lime green suit, a shocking pink feather boa draped around her neck, and a hat resembling a miniature topiary, sent a wave of nervous energy through me. She looked like a tropical bird that had somehow escaped from a cage and landed in the heart of Tuscany. Mom's face paled, a mixture of relief and dread washing over her features. Clara, who had been meticulously checking the flower arrangements, froze, her perfectly sculpted smile faltering. The air crackled with unspoken tension, the idyllic setting momentarily forgotten. Aunt Millie, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, approached Mom with a wide, almost childlike grin. "Eleanor, my dear, you haven't aged a day, though I must say this venue lacks a certain je ne sais quoi. Perhaps a few strategically placed flamingos would add some zest?" Her voice, a melodious alto, cut through the silence, momentarily diffusing the tension. Mom managed a weak smile, her eyes darting towards Clara, who was now engaging in a furious whispered conversation with her fiancé, Clyde, a man whose jawline was as sharp as his ambition. Clyde, a man whose charm was as carefully constructed as his tailored suits, was the epitome of success. He was handsome, wealthy, and ruthlessly ambitious, a man who valued appearances above all else. His presence at the wedding, while outwardly impeccable, only served to amplify the underlying tensions. He was the perfect embodiment of Clara's carefully curated world, a world that Aunt Millie, with her unbridled spirit and utter disregard for social graces, threatened to disrupt. I watched as Mom subtly steered Aunt Millie towards a secluded corner of the vineyard, engaging her in a hushed conversation. Their exchange was barely audible, but I could sense the unspoken pleas, the desperate attempts at reconciliation, the unspoken compromises. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, the beautiful vineyard suddenly feeling like a gilded cage. The sun, which had been so bright just moments ago, seemed to dim, casting long, ominous shadows across the meticulously planned landscape. The wedding ceremony was about to begin, and the air hung heavy with the unspoken question, would it actually happen? Gilbert, Mom's old friend and a constant source of support, approached me, his kind eyes filled with concern. "It's intense, isn't it?" he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to find the words to express the turmoil within me. Gilbert, a retired professor with a gentle demeanor and a wealth of wisdom, had always been a calming presence in my life. He understood Mom's complicated relationship with her sister, the years of unspoken grievances, and the fragile threads of affection that still bound them together. "Your mother loves them both," Gilbert said softly, his words a balm to my frayed nerves. "It's a terrible position to be in, to have to choose." He was right. Mom was caught in a vice, squeezed between the demands of her ambitious daughter and the loyalty she felt towards her eccentric sister. The choice she made, whatever it may be, would leave a lasting impact on our family. The weight of that realization settled heavily on my shoulders. As the wedding music began to play, a wave of anxiety washed over me. I saw Mom emerge from her conversation with Aunt Millie, her face a mask of carefully controlled emotion. Aunt Millie, surprisingly, was nowhere to be seen. A strange sense of relief, mixed with a pang of guilt, washed over me. Mom had made her choice. She had sacrificed one daughter's happiness for the sake of the other. The consequences of that decision, I knew, would be far-reaching and potentially devastating. The ceremony proceeded without a hitch, a flawless display of elegance and sophistication. Clara, radiant in her designer gown, looked like a princess stepping out of a fairy tale. Clyde, impeccably groomed, stood beside her, his smile unwavering. The guests, oblivious to the underlying family drama, applauded and celebrated, their joy a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. The champagne flowed freely, masking the bitterness that lingered in the air, but the carefully constructed facade couldn't hold forever. The celebratory dinner, held under a canopy of stars, was a tense affair. The forced smiles and polite conversations were punctuated by moments of awkward silence, the unspoken resentments hanging heavy in the air. Clara, still slightly on edge, kept glancing towards the empty chair reserved for Aunt Millie, her eyes flashing with a mixture of triumph and unease. Later that night, after the last of the guests had departed, I found Mom sitting alone by the vineyard's edge, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She looked exhausted, her shoulders slumped with the weight of her decision. I sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her arm. "It was difficult," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "But Clara, she was so adamant." "And Aunt Millie?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mom sighed, her eyes distant. "She understood. She left a note saying she didn't want to ruin Clara's day. She's gone to visit Joyce in Rome." Joyce was a close friend of Aunt Millie's, a free-spirited artist who lived a bohemian life in Italy. It was a fitting destination for Aunt Millie, a place where her unconventional spirit would be celebrated rather than condemned. The next morning, as I prepared to leave, I found a small, intricately carved wooden bird on my bed. It was a hummingbird, its tiny wings poised for flight. Attached to it was a note, written in Aunt Millie's elegant script. "Fly free, my dear, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful things are found in unexpected places." The wedding had ended, but the story of our family, its complexities and contradictions, was far from over. The choice Mom had made had created a rift, a silence that hung heavy between Clara and Aunt Millie. But it also revealed something profound: the strength of family bonds, their resilience in the face of adversity, and the enduring power of love, even in its most unconventional forms. The Tuscan sun still shone brightly, but the landscape of our family had been irrevocably altered. The scars remained, but within them, a new kind of understanding, a fragile hope for reconciliation, began to take root. The hummingbird, a symbol of freedom and resilience, served as a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, beauty and hope could still take flight. And as I drove away from the vineyard, leaving behind the opulent remnants of a lavish wedding and the lingering echoes of a family conflict, I knew that our journey as a family was far from over. The seeds of both sorrow and hope had been sown, and only time would tell what would blossom from them. The drive back to Florence was quiet, the Tuscan countryside blurring into a hazy tapestry of green and gold. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. Not exactly. It was more of a heavy blanket, woven from unspoken words and lingering emotions. I thought about Clara, her carefully constructed happiness, built on a foundation of carefully chosen details and suppressed emotions. Had she truly found joy, or had she simply built a beautiful cage for herself? And what about Mom? The relief on her face had been palpable, but it was layered with a sadness that tugged at my heart. The choice she'd made, the sacrifice she'd endured weighed heavily on her. The hummingbird, a tiny, vibrant creature, felt like a poignant symbol of the situation. It represented Aunt Millie's spirit, her ability to navigate life with an unconventional grace, to find joy even in the face of rejection. But it also symbolized the fragility of our family, the delicate balance that could be shattered by a single, ill-considered decision. The unspoken question hung in the air. Could we rebuild what had been broken? Could the seeds of sorrow and hope coexist, blossom into something stronger, more resilient? The next few weeks were filled with a strange mix of normalcy and underlying tension. Clara and Clyde embarked on their honeymoon, their social media feeds filled with idyllic photos that felt strangely distant, almost unreal. Mom retreated into herself, her usual vibrancy dimmed by a quiet melancholy. I tried to be there for her, offering support and a listening ear, but the unspoken words remained, a silent barrier between us. The incident had exposed a fault line in our family, a deep crack that threatened to fracture everything. The question remained: could we bridge the gap, or would we be forever separated by the choices we'd made? The future felt uncertain, a vast and uncharted territory. Then came the unexpected. A postcard arrived bearing a Roman postmark and Aunt Millie's distinctive handwriting. It depicted a vibrant street scene, overflowing with flowers and bustling with life. On the back, a simple message: "The gelato here is divine, thinking of you all." It was a small gesture, a seemingly insignificant detail, yet it resonated deeply. It was a bridge, a tiny lifeline thrown across the chasm that had opened within our family. It was a silent acknowledgement of the pain, a subtle hint of forgiveness. Mom's reaction was immediate and profound. The quiet melancholy that had settled over her lifted slightly, replaced by a flicker of hope. She reread the postcard countless times, a faint smile playing on her lips. It was as if Aunt Millie's simple act of reaching out had rekindled a dying ember, a spark of connection that had been almost extinguished. That evening, Mom called Clara. The conversation was brief, tense at first, but gradually softened. Clara, still slightly defensive, admitted to feeling a pang of regret, a subtle crack in her carefully constructed facade. The conversation wasn't a reconciliation, not yet, but it was a start. A tentative step towards healing the wounds that had been inflicted. It was a recognition that even the most meticulously planned lives can be disrupted by unforeseen circumstances, by the unpredictable currents of family dynamics. The future remained uncertain, but a fragile hope, like a delicate seedling pushing through hardened soil, began to take root. The silence that had settled over our family was slowly, tentatively, being broken. Weeks turned into months. The initial tension gradually eased, replaced by a tentative, fragile peace. Clara, surprisingly, started initiating contact with Mom, sharing small details about her life with Clyde, her voice softening, shedding the icy veneer she'd adopted before the wedding. It wasn't a complete transformation, not overnight, but a slow, gradual thawing, a subtle shift in dynamics. The carefully constructed walls she'd erected around her heart seemed to be crumbling, brick by brick. Aunt Millie remained in Rome, sending occasional postcards and the occasional email, her missives filled with witty observations and quirky anecdotes. She didn't apologize, didn't offer explanations. Her presence, even from afar, served as a reminder of the importance of embracing individuality, of celebrating differences rather than suppressing them. Her actions spoke volumes, a silent testament to the strength of her bond with Mom, a bond that transcended the superficialities of social expectations. Mom, in turn, seemed to find a renewed sense of self, a confidence that had been dimmed by the conflict. She started painting again, her canvases bursting with vibrant colors, reflecting a newfound sense of freedom and inner peace. The weight of the unspoken resentments seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet acceptance, a realization that family relationships are complex, messy, and often unpredictable, but ultimately enduring. The scars remained, but they were slowly fading, replaced by the tender shoots of forgiveness and understanding. The future, once a vast and uncertain landscape, began to look a little brighter, a little more hopeful. One crisp autumn afternoon, I received a phone call from Mom. Her voice was filled with a quiet excitement, a lightness I hadn't heard in months. "Kylie," she said, "Aunt Millie is coming to visit." The news felt both surprising and inevitable, a natural progression of the slow, delicate healing that had been taking place. It wasn't a grand gesture, no dramatic reconciliation, just a simple visit, a quiet reunion, but it felt monumental. This visit itself was understated, filled with a comfortable silence punctuated by shared laughter and reminiscences. There were no apologies, no lengthy explanations, just a quiet acknowledgement of the past, a shared understanding of the complexities of family relationships. Aunt Millie, still flamboyant in her style, brought with her a basket of exotic fruits and a collection of whimsical poems. Clara, surprisingly, was the first to embrace her, a hug that spoke volumes of unspoken regrets and newfound understanding. The tension that had hung heavy in the air for so long dissipated, replaced by a sense of warmth and camaraderie. The scars remained, faint reminders of the conflict, but they were now interwoven with threads of forgiveness and acceptance. The family, once fractured and divided, was slowly, painstakingly, being pieced back together. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but it was a start, a hopeful beginning. The future remained uncertain, but the possibility of a stronger, more resilient family unit felt tangible, a promise whispered on the autumn breeze. Christmas that year felt different. The usual forced cheer was replaced by a genuine warmth, a sense of togetherness that had been absent for so long. Clara, surprisingly, suggested inviting Aunt Millie to join us for the festivities. The idea, once unthinkable, now felt natural, a testament to the healing that had taken place. Aunt Millie, ever the eccentric, arrived with a collection of handmade ornaments, each one more bizarre and delightful than the last. She regaled us with stories of her Roman adventures, her voice filled with a contagious enthusiasm. The dinner table, once a battleground of unspoken resentments, was now filled with laughter and easy conversation. Clara and Aunt Millie even engaged in a playful banter, their earlier animosity replaced by a newfound respect, a grudging admiration for each other's unique personalities. It wasn't a perfect Christmas, not without its awkward moments and lingering silences, but it was a Christmas filled with a genuine sense of family, a connection that had been almost lost but was now slowly, steadily being rebuilt. The wounds remained, but they were healing, the scars a testament to the strength and resilience of our family bonds. That evening, as we gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and laughter, I realized that the Tuscan vineyard, with its opulent backdrop and simmering drama, had served as a catalyst for profound change. It had exposed the fault lines in our family, the unspoken resentments and carefully constructed facades. But it had also paved the way for healing, for forgiveness, for a deeper understanding of each other's complexities. The journey had been challenging, filled with pain and uncertainty, but the destination, a stronger, more resilient family, felt within reach. The future remained unwritten, but the possibilities felt endless, a testament to the enduring power of family, of love, and of the unexpected beauty that can emerge from even the most challenging of circumstances. However, the fragile peace didn't last. A new conflict emerged, unexpected and jarring. Clyde, ever the pragmatist, ever focused on maintaining appearances, began to express his discomfort with Aunt Millie's continued presence in our lives. His subtle criticisms, veiled in polite suggestions and concerned inquiries, gradually escalated into thinly disguised complaints. He found her too unconventional, too disruptive, a sentiment that echoed Clara's earlier ultimatum, though expressed with a far more polished, socially acceptable veneer. The tension, though subtle at first, began to permeate our family gatherings. Clara, caught between her husband's disapproval and her newfound appreciation for her aunt, grew increasingly withdrawn, her carefully constructed composure cracking under the strain. Mom, ever the peacemaker, attempted to mediate, but her efforts were met with Clyde's icy politeness and Clara's strained silence. The fragile equilibrium we had painstakingly achieved was threatened once more, the old wounds threatening to reopen, the seeds of hope struggling to survive in the harsh winter of renewed conflict. The climax arrived during a family dinner, a seemingly innocuous gathering that quickly devolved into a heated confrontation. Clyde's thinly veiled criticisms of Aunt Millie boiled over into an outright attack, his words laced with a condescending tone that left everyone speechless. Clara, finally snapping, defended her aunt with a fierceness that surprised us all, a powerful assertion of her independence and her newfound understanding of family loyalty. The ensuing silence was heavy, thick with unspoken resentments and the bitter taste of betrayal. The carefully constructed peace had shattered, leaving behind a landscape of raw emotions and uncertain futures. The question loomed, could our family survive this new storm, or would it be irrevocably broken? Mom, her face pale, rose from her chair, her voice trembling slightly as she addressed Clyde. Her words were measured, carefully chosen, but carried the weight of years of unspoken frustrations. She spoke not only of Clyde's disrespect towards Aunt Millie, but of his underlying disregard for the complexities of family relationships, his insistence on a superficial harmony that ignored the messy realities of human connection. It was a powerful moment, a culmination of years of suppressed emotions finally finding their voice. Clara, emboldened by her mother's support, stood firm, her eyes blazing with a newfound strength. She spoke of her own awakening, her realization that true happiness wasn't about maintaining a flawless facade, but about embracing the imperfections and eccentricities of those she loved. She spoke of her aunt's unwavering loyalty, her unique spirit, her capacity for unconditional love. Her words were a declaration of independence, a rejection of Clyde's controlling nature and his narrow definition of happiness. Aunt Millie, initially silent, finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. She didn't raise her voice, didn't engage in a shouting match. Instead, she spoke of the importance of embracing individuality, of celebrating differences, of finding joy in the unexpected. Her words were a gentle rebuke, a quiet assertion of her own worth, a reminder that true beauty lies not in conformity, but in authenticity. The air crackled with tension, the silence punctuated only by the clinking of silverware and the heavy beating of our hearts. The dinner, once a symbol of family unity, had become a crucible, forging a new understanding, a new definition of family, one built not on superficial harmony, but on genuine acceptance and unwavering loyalty. The future remained uncertain, but the path forward, though difficult, felt clearer than ever before. The aftermath of the dinner was tense. Clyde, his carefully constructed composure shattered, retreated into a sullen silence, his usual charm replaced by a cold, distant demeanor. Clara, though shaken, stood firm in her convictions, her newfound strength unwavering. Mom, exhausted, but resolute, quietly cleaned up the remnants of the shattered dinner, her eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and quiet determination. Aunt Millie, ever the pragmatist beneath her eccentric exterior, simply packed her bags, her departure as unexpected and understated as her arrival. The following days were filled with a heavy silence, a stark contrast to the festive cheer that had preceded the explosive dinner. Clara and Clyde engaged in a series of hushed, tense conversations, their future hanging precariously in the balance. The air in the house was thick with unspoken words, with the weight of difficult choices and uncertain outcomes. Mom, though, visibly weary, remained steadfast in her support of Clara, her love for both her daughter and her sister unwavering. The conflict, though painful, served as a catalyst for profound change. It forced us to confront the unspoken resentments, the carefully constructed facades, the compromises that had strained our family relationships for so long. It exposed the flaws in our carefully constructed lives, the limitations of seeking happiness through external validation and superficial harmony. It was a painful process, a crucible that tested the strength of our bonds, but it also paved the way for a deeper, more authentic connection. A family built not on flawless appearances, but on unwavering loyalty, unconditional love, and the acceptance of our inherent imperfections. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was a path we would walk together, stronger and more resilient than ever before. The resolution, when it came, was not a dramatic reconciliation, but a quiet understanding. Clara, after much soul-searching, decided to separate from Clyde. It wasn't a decision made lightly. It was a painful, agonizing process, but ultimately it was a choice born of self-awareness and a newfound understanding of her own values. She chose family, chose authenticity, chose a life less polished perhaps, but infinitely richer in genuine connection. Clyde, predictably, was furious, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. He couldn't comprehend Clara's decision, her rejection of his meticulously planned life, her prioritization of family over social standing. His anger, however, was impotent, a testament to Clara's newfound strength and resolve. He left, taking with him his carefully curated image of success, leaving behind the remnants of a relationship built on superficiality and a disregard for genuine human connection. The separation, though painful, brought a sense of relief. The tension that had permeated our family life for so long finally dissipated, replaced by a quiet understanding, a shared acceptance of the complexities of human relationships. Mom, though saddened by the dissolution of Clara's marriage, found solace in her daughter's newfound strength and independence. Aunt Millie, ever the wise observer, offered her quiet support, her presence a constant reminder of the importance of embracing authenticity and celebrating individuality. The family, though forever changed by the events of that tumultuous year, emerged stronger, more resilient, and infinitely more connected. The future, once uncertain, now held the promise of a new beginning, a life built not on superficial appearances but on genuine love, unwavering loyalty, and the acceptance of our inherent imperfections. Time, as it always does, began to heal the wounds. Clara, free from the constraints of a loveless marriage, blossomed. She pursued her own passions, rediscovering her artistic talents, finding joy in simple things, in genuine connections, in the unwavering support of her mother and aunt. The weight of expectation, the pressure to conform to societal norms, lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of liberation and self-discovery. Aunt Millie, her unconventional spirit finally embraced and celebrated, became a constant source of inspiration and support. Her quirky wisdom, once viewed as a source of embarrassment, was now cherished as a unique perspective, a reminder that life is too short to conform to societal expectations. Her presence in our lives was no longer a source of conflict, but a celebration of individuality, a testament to the beauty of embracing our differences. Mom, watching her daughters thrive, found a renewed sense of purpose. The pain of the past year had strengthened her resolve, deepening her appreciation for the importance of family, of unconditional love, and of the enduring power of human connection. She found solace in her art, her canvases reflecting the vibrant colors of her newfound peace and the resilience of her spirit. The Tuscan vineyard, once a symbol of conflict and division, now represented a transformative journey, a testament to the strength of family bonds and the unexpected beauty that can emerge from even the most challenging of circumstances. The scars remained, faint reminders of a difficult past, but they were now interwoven with the vibrant threads of forgiveness, understanding, and unwavering love. Our family, once fractured and divided, was now stronger, more resilient, and infinitely more connected than ever before. One spring afternoon, several months later, we gathered at Mom's house. The air was filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and the cheerful chatter of laughter. Clara, radiant and confident, was excitedly showing Mom a new collection of her paintings, her canvases bursting with vibrant colors and bold strokes. Aunt Millie, perched on a comfortable armchair, recited a whimsical poem, her voice filled with warmth and humor. The atmosphere was relaxed, comfortable, filled with a genuine sense of peace and contentment. Mom, watching her daughters, her face etched with a quiet joy, smiled. The scars of the past year were still visible, faint reminders of the challenges they had faced, but they were now interwoven with the vibrant threads of forgiveness, understanding, and unwavering love. The Tuscan vineyard, once a symbol of conflict and division, was now a distant memory, a reminder of a transformative journey that had ultimately strengthened their family bonds. It wasn't a perfect family, not by any means. They still had their disagreements, their occasional moments of friction, but they had learned to navigate those challenges with grace, with empathy, with a deeper understanding of each other's complexities. They had learned the importance of embracing their differences, of celebrating their individuality, of finding strength in their shared history and unwavering love. The future held uncertainties, as it always does, but they faced it together, a family bound not by flawless appearances or superficial harmony, but by the enduring power of genuine connection, unwavering loyalty, and the acceptance of their inherent imperfections. The journey had been difficult, but the destination, a stronger, more resilient family, was finally within reach. And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of family and the quiet hum of contentment, I knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, Mom handed me a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a single, perfectly formed hummingbird feather. It was a gift from Aunt Millie, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared, a symbol of the resilience and freedom they had both discovered. The feather, light as a whisper, felt significant. It represented not only Aunt Millie's unique spirit but also the transformation our family had undergone. It was a reminder of the unexpected beauty that can emerge from conflict, of the strength that can be found in embracing our imperfections, and of the enduring power of family bonds. It was a symbol of hope, of healing, of the journey towards a more authentic and fulfilling life. As I held the feather, I thought about the Tuscan vineyard, about the opulent wedding, about the explosive confrontation that had threatened to tear our family apart. And I realized that those events, though painful, had ultimately served as a catalyst for profound change. They had forced us to confront our unspoken resentments, our carefully constructed facades, our limitations. They had paved the way for a deeper understanding, for genuine connection, for a love that transcended superficiality and embraced authenticity. The scars remained, faint reminders of a difficult past, but they were now interwoven with the vibrant threads of forgiveness, understanding, and unwavering love. Our family, once fractured and divided, was now stronger, more resilient, and infinitely more connected than ever before. And as I looked at my family, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, I knew that we were finally, truly, home. The following months were filled with a quiet contentment, a sense of peace that had been long absent. Clara thrived, her art flourishing, her spirit soaring. She found a new love, a man who appreciated her authenticity, her quirks, her unwavering loyalty to her family. He understood the complexities of her past, respected her strength, and cherished her unique spirit. Aunt Millie, ever the free spirit, continued her adventures, sending postcards and emails filled with whimsical tales and insightful observations. Her visits became cherished events filled with laughter, shared stories, and a quiet understanding that transcended words. Her presence was a constant reminder of the importance of embracing individuality, of celebrating differences, of finding joy in the unexpected. Mom, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude, found a renewed sense of purpose, her art reflecting the vibrant colors of her newfound peace. She cherished the moments spent with her daughters, their bond strengthened by the challenges they had overcome, their connection deepened by the shared experiences of pain and healing. The Tuscan vineyard, once a symbol of conflict and division, now held a different meaning, a reminder of the transformative power of family, of the resilience of the human spirit, and of the unexpected beauty that can emerge from even the most challenging of circumstances. The journey had been long and arduous, filled with pain, uncertainty, and difficult choices, but it had ultimately led them to a place of profound understanding, of genuine connection, of unwavering love. They were a family, imperfect yet undeniably strong, bound not by flawless appearances or superficial harmony, but by the enduring power of authenticity, loyalty, and the unwavering acceptance of each other's inherent imperfections. And in that quiet contentment, in the warmth of their shared love, they found their true home.